My name is Jonathan Monk. I'm an artist. I was born in England, but I live in Germany. I live in Berlin and have done for the last nearly 20 years. I've lived in other places as well. And I studied in Glasgow at the Glasgow School of Art. What I do is often not super clear to me, which is why I probably continue to do it. Because I think if you know what you're doing exactly, there seems to be not much point doing it. So I tend to try and do lots of different things, just mainly to keep me busy, which is always not necessarily important, because I think it's good to do nothing often. But I like the idea that you're hopefully challenging yourself in making new works, or at least thinking of new ways of doing things. I guess I left art school in the early 90s, and whether I was an artist then, I don't know. I guess I thought I was, and whether I am now is also not 100% clear. But it's what you do to keep going, I suppose. And I've done a lot of different things. I've really done performance and video and film and photography and sculpture and painting. Even though the reality is that I can't do personally any of these things very well. So I tend to get a lot of people to help me in different places in the world, which means you also often have a different visual outcome to the work. So the idea might start a process, and then what the finished product looks like is often not even so important to me. Why I'm in Mexico City is because I've made a series of works which I'm not sure they were called anything when I came up with the idea, but I think they've been called meeting pieces for a while now. And the meeting works, it's basically, I started I think in '97. I lived in Los Angeles, and it seemed to me that when you were wanting to meet people or plan to see people in the future, it was never tomorrow. Maybe we could meet on Wednesday of next week. But that sort of thing didn't happen when I was there. People had to plan weeks in advance to cross town. So in the end, you ended up rarely seeing people because there was nothing really spontaneous. So to go against that, I tried to think it might be possible to plan a meeting years in advance, 10 or 15 or even 20 years ahead, which at the time seemed like a little bit ridiculous, and probably still is, that anyone would be willing to meet me in the future. But anyway, it somehow sort of started to work, and people liked the idea. So I would hopefully, or tried, or not me personally, but these works were sold, and the buyer of the work was given a certificate that would lay down the kind of rules for the work, which would be for me to meet them at a specific time and date in the future, which was stated on the text that accompanied the work. I always I see the text that states the place, date and time as really maybe an invitation, or yeah, it kind of documents the idea of the work, but it isn't the work. The work is really the moment where hopefully I would meet the person that was foolish enough to acquire the work many years before. So I've done a few of these now, this one being, I think, the 6th meeting. I've had a couple in London, one in Copenhagen, one in Torino, and one in LA. And I go generally to these places. I mean, nothing's said. This 15 years passes, or whatever amount of time it happens to be, and the future always seems so distant. But of course, slowly it catches up with you, and you realize that next week you do have to go to Mexico City, in this case, and stand on a street corner at the allotted time, with the idea that someone else will also be doing the same thing. And then the work is complete and the meeting is met. it's always slightly awkward, and I do get a little bit nervous with this whole thing, that because it's been a process, it's been a long time coming, and then suddenly it's there. And of course, as there's nothing really to do, it's just to kind of make it up as you go along at that moment, which makes it nice and kind of exciting that there are, of course, myriad possibilities of what you could or couldn't do. But generally we just go for lunch or go for a drink or just chat about the idea of the work. I don't know. There's also the chance within the work, which is built into the idea of a meeting, is that the person will actually forget, or will be ill, or will miss the plane, or will, I mean, worst case scenario, not even be around anymore. But then that could also be me that has the same situation. So it doesn't change the work, it just alters the outcome. Of course, the ideal situation is both people meet and everyone's really happy and they think it's great and we're all friends together. But of course, there's a chance that I don't show up and the person is kind of annoyed and thinks it's strange, but that's still part of the work. None of the buildings on the Sunset Strip, which is a kind of take on a classic Ed Ruscha publication called All of the Buildings on Sunset Strip. So I just went to the same place in Los Angeles and photographed all of the streets that lead away from the Sunset Strip. I mean, you see parts of the buildings, but you mainly see the route away from the Ed Ruscha. So it's a kind of, hopefully the idea that you're influenced by the initial work, but it's about escaping the idea of the work. Through Instagram, I've started a series of drawings, not specifically through Instagram, but that's how I kind of sell them, I guess. So I was living in Italy, in Rome, for a couple of years with my family. When we'd go out for dinner, you always would receive the receipt, and it was generally handwritten by the waiter, and then the price, and then you pay and you take away this kind of piece of paper. So I try to slowly come up with an idea how I could use these bits of paper within the context of my work. I do a drawing on the receipt for the dinner, and then I put it on Instagram and I sell it for the price of the dinner. So basically someone else then pays for my dinner. I mean, I don't make any money, I just don't lose any money. So I then eat for free. There's a weird kind of, it's sort of, it's not weird, I guess it's normal, but now I post them on Instagram and they sell within like 30 seconds or less, which is kind of weird. I mean, it's nice, but it's like, it gets a little bit crazy, but it's a nice thing to do. I mean, it just keeps you busy, like maybe keeps you thinking. And when I do I quite like to do the drawings because I haven't done drawings for a long time. So it was something, just a pencil on a piece of paper, and then I generally copy someone else's work, so I don't have a lot of myself in there. So it's more about the idea of someone wanting to pay for my lunch.